just one day away, and I got my best and worst teams with some new features added to this series. I'm gonna add who I think is gonna be the best driver, the worst driver, the most surprising performance, and my insane prediction for the race. So let's start with that before we get into all the teams and predicting all the teams standing. So who I think will be the best performing driver in Miami. I'm gonna go for Lewis Hamilton. I think he is going to strive again. He had a great Baku, he had a great Australia. I think he's in his rhythm. I think he's motivated. I don't expect that Mercedes to be flying colors in Miami, but I expect Lewis to have the best weekend and to be fighting for a podium with Alonso. Now, rain is expected, so maybe those two can take it further on, but I expect Lewis to have the best weekend out of any driver going into this race. Which driver do I think will have the worst weekend? Well, I mean, I could take an easy guess and say Nick de Vries, but let's think outside the box a little bit, and I'm actually, for a guy that's been having a great start to the season, and I guess expectations have now been raised, I'm gonna say Nico Hülkenberg is gonna struggle a little bit in Miami. I guess my biggest reason being why is, if it's a wet race, Nico's pretty okay in wet races, but he's never been that aggressive driver. But also, he's never actually driven in Miami, and if it goes from dry to wet, it'll be hard for him to adapt. Racetrack is to his real suiting. It's going to be tough for him to determine where he's going to have to brake and where are the latest spots that he can brake at. So for those reasons, I'm going to put Nico Hülkenberg. And my surprise for the weekend will be that McLaren will outpace the Alpine by a lot. I think that the Alpine is falling back, and I think that there is a lot of struggle with that car currently happening, and really the team in general. I expect McLaren to perform a lot better here, actually take the win to Alpine and fight for 9th and 10th, if not even higher. In my insane prediction for the whole entire race is we're going to have a wet race with only 12 finishers. I expect 8 cars to DNF. It's going to be an insanely fun race. And I expect that we might get a surprise winner with this race. And I'm going to go with Perez. I'm going to say Perez is going to win again. I think that will be thrilling for the 2023 season if he can somehow outbeat Max Verstappen, especially if it's a wet race where that guy is an animal. Before I go into it though, I just want to say I love you guys and thank you so much for supporting the channel. You guys are the best and genuinely the best family that I can have on YouTube. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for commenting. And to anybody that's not, please subscribe, like, it would mean the world for me. Let's get into the 10 teams. Okay, first team we're talking about is ALPHATAURI, because this is the team that I expect to be 10th in the Miami GP. That car isn't great. And honestly, the only 2 cars that can fight for that 10th and 9th position will be a team that I mentioned very briefly and very soon. But for the ALPHATAURI, still slow, still has a lot of faults to it. I think they were okay in Baku, really due to the fact that they have a Honda engine, and it seems like they're pretty efficient in that DRS stream. But that's really about it. They got the good straight line speed, which I guess they improved upon that in Australia. It wasn't really great there, but they found a good setup window, and I think they might have gotten even lucky with the other teams in really determining the fact that they were that quick. Now, another team that I think will perform badly, and arguably they could be 10th, is Alfa Romeo. The team that's really falling behind and just struggling to get any points up on the board. Now, Bottas had damage in Baku that's not really talked about. Zhou did not have a great race, and he had to actually retire the car, which I predicted in my last one. But yeah, not a great race. Yet again, slow car, no straight line speed, struggle on tires. It's just a bad combination all around. Those 2 cars are by far the 9th and 10th worst cars on the grid. Now, for 8th, I'm going to say Haas. I think Haas is going to have another one of those weird weekends like Baku, and I think it will be a hard track for them to perform on. I do think they could maybe beat expectations of fighting with Williams, McLaren, and Alpine, but I don't think it's going to be much of a fight. Their tires are going to degrade like crazy, and I don't expect them really to get that high up on the grid. Now, let's go into the more important part, which is 7th to 5. Now, these are all close. These are all close, and I might get stick for this, but I'm sticking with my prediction. At 7, I have Alpine. Honestly, they have underperformed the whole entire year so far in every single race. Australia was only a great race because they were able to stay within DRS, and Gasly was pushing that pedal. When it comes to any other track, Bahrain, sloppy. Saudi Arabia, It was all right. But any other team was pretty close to him. Now, Baku was awful, and that was with their new floor that came. I get it. Maybe the setup was out of the window, but how are you still behind a Williams or a McLaren that brought a whole completely different floor geometry? Alpine, for me, is 7th in this race, and I think I'm going to be right on this. Hopefully I'm wrong. Honestly, I'd love to see Alpine strive at least a little. Now at 6, I'm going to put Williams. And this is, I guess, my surprise going into this, that Williams is going to be faster than Alpine. But I genuinely don't believe that if Albon sticks it. Last year, Albon actually scored a P9. Now, that was to the help of Alonso having a penalty and a couple other misfortunes, but still a great race by Alex Albon and a very well-performed one. When he needed to perform, he did, and he did exactly what he needed to do. So for Albon, I expect him in the points. I think Logan is going to have a banger weekend. He's going to perform in his home state. Williams in 6th spot, fighting with McLaren in P5, who I think will also have a pretty strong weekend. And I actually have a lot higher expectations going into this for McLaren. That floor will work a lot better. They will be able to actually extract their upgrade performance, but they will still not be fighting with the top 4 teams. At number 4, I'm going to put Ferrari, and purely not because of pace. They are bringing some upgrades, so I'm interested to see what this can bring for the team from Maranello. But where they're going to really lack, and where I can't really get it through my head why they can't fix this problem, is their tire degradation. It's funny, I actually looked into some years before. They are notoriously bad on their tires and have been for the past however many years. When Vettel was driving, it's just been a bad combination for most drivers that have driven in the team in red. So I'm going to put him at number 4 because Miami will be hot. And they better hope the rain comes or that car will not be able to extract its full performance. At number 3, I'm going to put Mercedes. I think that they're going to be very, very close with number 2. And I do think if it rains, all 4 teams can perform and actually beat the Red Bull. I'm just going to go out and say. But I do expect Mercedes to not be the strongest here. There's still some parts to that car that aren't necessarily great on it. And I don't expect them to be Aston Martin because their tire degradation isn't as, I would say, as good as Aston Martin. They're pretty close. So it will be a tight battle, but not tight enough. That Aston Martin in Baku could have overtaken them, slight work, if it wasn't for a couple of different incidents that happened. Number 2, the Aston Martin team. And if it's raining, still number 2. I think it'll be tough to beat the Red Bulls here. Yet again, a very long straight, and it still is very reliant, even in Sector 2, for the most part, on straight line speed and really the DRS. So I'm going to say that Aston Martin is 2nd, but if it's a dry race, they will be 2nd by a very good margin, other than really maybe Lewis Hamilton, or maybe it's George. Maybe it's George this weekend that can push that car further than it actually needs to be. But if Jeddah was anything of an indicator, I would kind of assume the order in Jeddah to be the same that it is here in Miami for the top 4 teams, because of tire degradation and really the way that the track is kind of suited to some certain cars. So talking about that, Red Bull is at my number 1, and I do think it will be another one of those weekends where they're not going to be miles ahead of Aston Martin, and it could be a closer battle than we think, especially with a little bit of good luck. We still have yet to see Alonso really kind of flick it from that safety car reset. I feel like those 2 red flags, he should have taken a little bit more advantage in Australia, but you know what? He sees it, we all see it. What's the point of fighting with those Red Bulls for even a lap or 2 when you know they're just going to smoke you on the straight? But the car has improved much on its top speed, and it will be very interesting to see where both the Red Bull and Aston Martin can kind of sit down on their cars going into this weekend. But Red Bull will have a pretty strong advantage there, and they're super strong at the curbs. Curbs are very apparent in Sector 2, especially going under that tunnel. And that is a very important part to extract a lot of pace, but the Aston Martin car is very good on the braking. So it'll be close. It will be a fun, I think, race. I think Miami is actually going to surprise a lot of people at how good it's going to be. Now, thank you all so much for watching. I'm done talking about my predictions. Leave your thoughts down below. Please give your 10 teams and really the drivers that you have. Go off of my predictions that I said in the beginning. Give me your surprise, best, worst, and prediction for the race. Leave your thoughts down below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.